Humanity stood at the dawn of a new age, a period of transition from the brutal struggle for survival to the uncertain path of shaping the future. The Zenith Accord's defeat had marked a victory not just of military might, but of spirit, intellect, and evolution. Yet, with the Shiray's offer hanging over them like a cloud, humanity faced a decision that would determine their place in the galaxy, for better or for worse. On Earth, the air was thick with the anticipation of change. The Federation's headquarters buzzed with activity as the highest-ranking officials, military leaders, and scientists worked furiously to prepare for the next step. The Shiray had promised knowledge that could extend humanity's reach across space, manipulating time, bending reality, and unlocking untapped power. Yet, the potential for corruption, for unforeseen consequences, loomed large. In the war rooms and laboratories, the debate continued. Should humanity accept the Shiray's offer, taking the knowledge they had been denied for millennia? Or should they chart their own course, relying on their own ingenuity, their own will to survive? President Reyes, having lived through the horror of the Accord's attack, the sacrifice of countless lives, now stood firm in her resolve. There was a weight to her decisions, a weight that only grew heavier with each passing day. She convened one final meeting with her closest allies, General Markov, Dr. Elena Voss, and a council of scientific and military experts who had worked alongside her from the beginning. "We've come a long way," Reyes began, her voice soft but resolute. "And it hasn't been easy. But the war against the Zenith Accord is over. Now, the galaxy is watching us, waiting to see what we'll do next." Markov, ever the realist, leaned forward. "I've said it before, and I'll say it again, we've shown them what humanity is capable of. But we can't keep going it alone. Not with the Shiray on the table. They have technology we can't even begin to understand. Their mastery of time, of space, it's beyond anything we've seen. But they've made one thing clear, they want our help. Our partnership. What are they really after?" "I don't know," Elena said, her voice betraying a rare uncertainty. "Their technology, their power, it's too vast. It's a temptation. A dangerous one. But we can't ignore that it could take us farther than we ever imagined. Or it could consume us." The tension was palpable, thick with the weight of their decisions. Reyes sighed, her gaze distant as she looked out at the stars, a reflection of the vast unknown that awaited them. "I don't trust them," she admitted finally, her voice unwavering. "But I also know that if we turn away from this offer, if we choose to remain in isolation, there are others out there who will not hesitate to fill the power vacuum we leave behind. The Accord is only the beginning. There are factions out there that are more dangerous, more insidious. We have to be prepared to face them." Elena glanced at the data stream on her console, the Shiray's offer still flashing in front of her, an endless stream of promises, of tantalizing possibilities. "I understand that. But what happens when we become like them? What happens when we use their power, and we lose our humanity in the process?" The room fell into a contemplative silence, the implications of their actions settling into the hearts of all present. At last, it was Markov who spoke again. "Whatever we choose, we need to be ready. We've spent so much time reacting to what others have done to us. Now, we have the chance to take control. But we can't let ourselves be consumed by it. Humanity's strength has always been our ability to adapt, to overcome. We need to remain vigilant. We can learn from the Shiray, yes, but we must always remember who we are." Reyes nodded. She knew that Markov was right. The future was theirs to shape, but they had to do it with wisdom, with responsibility. She could not let humanity fall into the trap of becoming something they were not. "The Shiray's knowledge is not a gift," she said finally, her voice hardening with resolve. "It's a challenge. A test. And we will face it on our terms." With that decision made, humanity began to move forward with careful steps. The Federation forged a tentative alliance with the Shiray, but with clear terms: humanity would not be a puppet to their will. They would share knowledge, yes, but they would never allow themselves to become subjugated. They would work alongside the Shiray, but the direction of their future would remain in their hands. The galaxy, now aware of humanity's newfound power and alliance with the Shi'Rai, began to shift. Some factions saw it as a chance for cooperation, others as a threat to their own influence. But the leaders of the Federation were determined to stand tall. They had learned from their enemies, and they had learned from their victories. The temptation of absolute power would not sway them, and their unity as a species would remain their greatest strength. In the years that followed, humanity's reach expanded, but not in the way the galaxy might have expected. Instead of dominating, humanity became the catalyst for a new era, one built on collaboration, innovation, and the unwavering belief that their potential was limitless. Elena Voss, now a leading figure in both scientific and political spheres, worked alongside the Shi'Rai to further develop their understanding of time and space. But even as they tapped into new sources of knowledge, she kept one guiding principle in mind: humanity must remain grounded. They must never forget their roots, their values, and the spirit that had made them fight so fiercely against all odds. General Markov, on the front lines, helped shape humanity's military forces into something entirely new. They were no longer just defenders, they were peacekeepers, explorers, guardians of the galaxy who upheld the fragile balance between power and responsibility. They would defend humanity's future, but only in a way that preserved their freedom and autonomy. President Reyes, though no longer at the forefront of the Federation's daily affairs, remained a symbol of humanity's strength and resolve. She had seen the galaxy change before her eyes, and she knew that Earth's future was no longer tied to its past struggles. Humanity had proven itself worthy. They had earned their place among the stars. And so, the galaxy would never be the same. The Zenith Accord had been defeated, the Shi'Rai had been confronted, and humanity, once the underdog, once the victim, had risen to claim its place in the cosmos. They had unleashed their true potential. They had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. But now, as they looked to the stars, they understood, the real journey was not about conquering the galaxy, but about finding their true purpose within it. For humanity had always been destined for something greater. And this was just the beginning. The Torvith fleet hung just outside the orbit of Mars, positioning itself for a decisive strike on Earth. Their plan was simple: obliterate the planet's defenses in one overwhelming attack, then harvest the resources they needed to fuel their empire. Their arrogance was palpable, believing their strength would be enough to crush humanity before any real resistance could form. But Admiral Elaine Mercer knew that the Torvith's confidence was both their greatest strength and their most fatal weakness. Humanity had no illusions of winning through sheer power. Instead, they would make the Torvith pay for every inch of ground they took. The first strike came not from the massive Earth-based defense platforms, but from a smaller, lesser-known military installation on the Moon. The Torvith fleet had failed to account for the hidden outposts, used by Earth's defense forces for emergency operations. Among the weapons there was something the Torvith had never encountered: a prototype missile, developed in the shadow of Earth's desperation. A single lunar base launched the missile, designed not to destroy, but to disrupt. The Torvith's advanced shielding, which they relied on to ward off any attack, had never been tested by this kind of weapon. The missile's payload was a complex electromagnetic pulse, one designed to create a chain reaction of malfunctions within the Torvith's fleet. As the missile closed in, the Torvith flagship, a massive dreadnought, was the first to be affected. Its shields flickered, then failed entirely, leaving the ship vulnerable for a mere few seconds, enough time for Earth's orbital cannons to land a few direct hits. Though the damage was superficial, it was enough to send a message. Humanity had teeth, and it wasn't afraid to bite. On Earth, the entire world watched as the attack was broadcast live. The news exploded across every media outlet, bringing the first sense of hope to the people. The Torvith, powerful as they were, had been shaken. They weren't invincible. However, the Torvith quickly recovered, their flagship coming back online as the fleet retaliated with overwhelming force. Within hours, the first of Earth's major cities were under siege. The Torvith began with orbital bombardments, their energy weapons reducing entire metropolises to rubble. Cities like New York, Tokyo, and Paris were hit with relentless strikes, leaving nothing but ash and ruins in their wake. #### Humanity's counterattack. As the chaos unfolded, the world's military leaders scrambled to react. But it was too late for conventional warfare. The Torvatha's advanced weaponry could decimate any army with ease, and Earth's remaining defense systems were simply not enough to hold back the tide. But Admiral Mercer's strategy was already in motion. She understood that this was not a battle of strength, it was a war of will. The Torvath had underestimated the human spirit, and it was that very spirit that would lead them to victory. Mercer's team had spent the past weeks preparing for the next phase of the defense: guerrilla warfare, cyber attacks, and surprise strikes. She had rallied the world's remaining military forces to her cause, uniting nations that had been divided by political agendas and greed. Their strategy was simple: strike fast, strike hard, and never give the Torvath a chance to recover. A team of elite soldiers, made up of the best humanity had to offer, boarded the last remaining shuttles capable of interstellar travel. Their mission was one of desperation: infiltrate the Torvath flagship, destroy its central command, and cripple the fleet's coordination from within. The operation was codenamed Titan's Fist. #### The infiltration. The human commandos, led by Colonel Sarah Wallace, approached the Torvath flagship from a hidden angle. The Torvath were overconfident, expecting no more resistance after their initial bombardments. But the humans were already inside their ship. Using a combination of stealth technology, smuggled weapons, and expertly honed tactics, they made their way through the labyrinthine corridors of the flagship, planting explosives in key areas and sabotaging critical systems. It wasn't just about taking down the Torvath, it was about sending a message. Every move they made was a signal to the rest of humanity that resistance was possible. They were fighting not just for survival, but for the future of their species. But the mission was perilous. The Torvath fleet was on high alert, and the commandos had only moments before their presence was detected. As they planted the final charges near the central command deck, a Torvath patrol stumbled into their path. The ensuing firefight was brutal, but the humans were determined. Colonel Wallace led the charge, fighting tooth and nail to ensure the success of the mission. When the countdown finally reached 0, the flagship's central command exploded in a blaze of fire and debris. The destruction wasn't enough to stop the Torvath fleet entirely, but it was a significant blow. The Torvath fleet was thrown into disarray, unable to coordinate their attacks with the same efficiency. #### A glimmer of hope. As the explosion rocked the heart of the Torvath flagship, the world watched in awe. Humanity had struck back, and for the first time, they believed they had a chance. The Torvath were powerful, yes, but they were not invincible. Humanity had shown them that, despite their strength, the will to survive could not be underestimated. But the war was far from over. The Torvath would come for Earth with even greater fury. But they would learn, just as the humans had, that when you push a species to the edge, you awaken something truly terrifying. And humanity's fight had only just begun. The destruction of the Torvath flagship sent ripples throughout the galaxy, but it was the people of Earth who felt the tremors most sharply. For the first time since the Torvath had appeared on the horizon, hope was within reach. The Earth's resistance wasn't just a small group of desperate survivors, it was becoming a coordinated global movement. The failure of the Torvath to fully crush humanity's resolve was something they had not prepared for. The Torvath had calculated that their overwhelming might would break Earth's spirit. Instead, it had done the opposite. As the world's military regrouped, ordinary civilians, from every corner of the globe, began to organize their own resistance groups. What had begun as a few isolated skirmishes had now become a global phenomenon. Humanity's war of attrition was underway. #### The global response. Admiral Mercer was the architect of this unprecedented human unity. She coordinated global efforts, marshaling resources and personnel from every nation to create a unified defense force. With the central command of the Torvath fleet crippled, Earth's military began using this window of opportunity to strike back in ways that the Torvath could not predict. On the ground, former soldiers, technicians, hackers, and engineers joined forces, contributing their expertise in an effort to turn the tide. In the wake of the initial devastation, guerrilla movements flourished. Rebel groups, made up of civilians who had lost everything to the Torvatha's bombardments, waged war against alien patrols. Farmers, teachers, doctors, ordinary people who had never seen battle, found themselves arming up and fighting for survival. But it wasn't just about physical resistance. The fight also went digital. Humanity's hackers, who had long been operating under the radar, began infiltrating the Torvatha's communication systems. They disabled surveillance drones, spread misinformation across enemy lines, and sabotaged supply chains. Earth's cyber warfare had become an unanticipated force, as every crack in the Torvatha's technology began to widen. The Torvath were learning a harsh lesson: their technological superiority was not enough to crush humanity. They had overlooked one crucial fact: Earth's greatest weapon was its people, and their capacity for adaptation and ingenuity was boundless. ### the Torvath retaliation. With their flagship damaged, the Torvath were furious. Their response was swift and brutal. They launched a series of devastating orbital strikes, leveling entire continents in retaliation for the embarrassment they had suffered. Major cities across the globe were bombarded with firestorms of plasma, and countless lives were lost in the aftermath. The Torvath had no mercy, but their acts of destruction only further cemented the resolve of Earth's people. The Torvath had never experienced this level of defiance. In all their conquests, they had faced resistance, yes, but none had ever fought back with such tenacity. The relentless retaliation stoked an even fiercer fire in the hearts of humanity. Though the enemy was powerful, the Torvath had never expected the kind of resistance they encountered on Earth. Now, they found themselves in an unexpected quagmire. Their fleet was stretched thin, their resources dwindling as human guerrilla forces struck relentlessly behind their lines. And for the first time in centuries, the Torvath feared they might not succeed. ### a desperate plan. Admiral Mercer knew that the situation was dire. The Torvatha's strikes were growing more frequent and more destructive, and Earth was running out of time. The next move would have to be decisive, or the planet might be reduced to rubble. But there was one weapon humanity still had, an ancient weapon, buried in the history of Earth's long struggle for survival: nuclear weapons. While Earth had been disarmed in the aftermath of the nuclear peace accords, a small number of warheads remained in secret vaults, hidden away in the most secure locations. These were humanity's last-ditch deterrents, meant to be used only if all other options had been exhausted. Mercer knew the consequences of using them. The radiation would devastate Earth's ecosystems, and the risk of permanent environmental collapse was very real. But in her eyes, it was the only way to ensure humanity's survival. There was a catch, however. Humanity's most powerful weapons were in the hands of a select few, scientists who had long ago developed the systems for launching them, but who had been largely kept out of the loop on military decisions. If these weapons were to be used, Mercer would need to convince not just the politicians and military leaders, but also the world's scientific community that this was the only path forward. In a speech broadcast across the globe, Mercer addressed the planet's inhabitants: "We stand on the precipice of extinction. The Torvath have underestimated us, but we must now make a choice. We will either surrender to them, or we will fight to the last. If we must use our last weapons, we will do so, not because we want to destroy our world, but because we want to preserve our future. The time for diplomacy is over." The speech left an indelible mark on humanity. The planet's fate rested on this moment. Earth's governments, united in their desperation, agreed to Mercer's plan. Humanity's final weapon would be unleashed, but only as a last resort. ### the moment of truth. With the Torvath tightening their grip on Earth, and the fate of the planet hanging by a thread, Mercer made the fateful decision: the warheads would be launched. The world braced for the devastation that would come next. But as the missiles prepared to launch, a surprise move by the resistance forces sent shockwaves through the Torvath ranks. A small fleet of human ships, aided by their newfound understanding of Torvath technology, infiltrated the alien fleet's command center. Inside, they discovered something that would change the course of the war: the Torvith had a fatal weakness. Humanity wasn't done yet. The next phase of the war would begin in the most unexpected of places, the heart of the Torvith fleet. And humanity, against all odds, was ready to take the fight directly to the enemy. The discovery of the Torvith fleet's fatal weakness was a stroke of fortune that no one had anticipated. Hidden deep within the alien technology was a critical flaw. The Torvith had underestimated the power of human ingenuity to adapt to new challenges. A single weak point in their primary warship's power core, a flaw in the way their shields and energy systems interacted, had gone unnoticed by the Torvith engineers. The Resistance now had a chance to exploit it. Admiral Mercer, determined to strike when the enemy was at its most vulnerable, quickly shifted her focus. Earth's Resistance fighters, bolstered by new intelligence, began planning the most dangerous mission humanity had ever faced. The objective was simple, yet suicidal: infiltrate the heart of the Torvith fleet, disable their power core, and cripple their ability to fight back. This time, the goal wasn't survival, it was total annihilation of their command structure. The Resistance had proven that humanity's ingenuity was its greatest weapon. Now, it was time to prove that the will to survive could break even the most formidable of foes. The assault begins. The operation, codenamed Iron Fist, was to be executed by a joint task force made up of Earth's best and brightest. The team would consist of a mix of seasoned soldiers, scientists, engineers, and hackers, all handpicked for their unique skills. Colonel Sarah Wallace, the hero of the sabotage mission on the Torvith flagship, was once again chosen to lead the charge. The journey to the Torvith fleet would be perilous. Earth's Resistance had already lost countless lives in space skirmishes, and the Torvith were now fully aware of humanity's plans. Time was running out, and the pressure was mounting. The task force would have one chance, and one chance only, to breach the heart of the enemy's fleet. The mission began in the early hours of Earth's night, as the specially trained assault team boarded a fleet of stealth shuttles and made their way toward the Torvith's flagship. Their goal wasn't to engage the enemy head-on, but to infiltrate their most secure space station and plant the explosives that would render the Torvith fleet helpless. As they approached the flagship, every nerve in Wallace's body was on edge. The alien ship loomed ahead like a dark titan, its size dwarfing any human craft. But the human team was prepared. They had made sure that the Torvith never saw them coming, using electromagnetic cloaking and light-bending technologies that had been developed in the last few months by Earth's brightest minds. However, even with the element of surprise on their side, the mission would not be without its risks. Inside the Torvith stronghold. The infiltrators, now aboard the Torvith flagship, moved swiftly and with precision. Every step taken in the dark corridors of the alien ship was one closer to their objective, but it was also one step closer to certain death. The Torvith were relentless in their vigilance, and any momentary slip-up could alert the enemy. Inside the Torvith flagship, everything was alien. The ship's walls, composed of materials far beyond human technology, seemed to pulse with energy. The corridors twisted in unnatural directions, and the scent of metal and static hung heavily in the air. Despite the advanced nature of the ship, the team pushed forward undeterred, their eyes fixed on their goal, the power core at the heart of the ship. Colonel Wallace led the team through the labyrinthine corridors, past enormous chambers filled with alien machinery and eerie, almost insect-like humanoid guards. The team's path was riddled with danger, there was no margin for error. A wrong move, a misstep, and they would be discovered. After what seemed like an eternity, they reached the core. The power station was a vast chamber, its walls lined with glowing, pulsating conduits, feeding enormous energy into the ship's systems. At the center of the chamber stood the Torvith's core, a massive, shimmering energy sphere, surrounded by an intricate array of defenses. The team's mission had become clear: they needed to plant a series of explosive charges around the sphere to destabilize it, causing a chain reaction that would cripple the entire fleet. The final countdown. As Wallace approached the core, her breath heavy in her chest, a chilling realization swept over her. They had made it this far, but the true test was about to begin. The enemy would soon notice their presence, and the clock was ticking. They had no time to waste. Wallace issued a calm but urgent order to the team. Set the charges and prepare for extraction. We don't have long. But as the explosive devices were being placed, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the ship. The Torvith had detected the breach. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the corridors, too many to count. The team was surrounded. "They've found us," one of the soldiers whispered, his voice tight with fear. Colonel Wallace looked around at the team, her gaze hardening. "Then it's time to finish this." The charges were set, and with no time to spare, the team fought their way back to the shuttle bay. The Torvith guards were relentless, but the humans fought with the ferocity of those who had nothing left to lose. Walls crumbled, alien bodies fell, and human soldiers pushed forward, driven by their singular goal, survival. As they reached the shuttle bay, Wallace turned to her team. "Get to the ships, now." The shuttle pilots had already prepped the ships for launch, but the clock was ticking, time was running out. The charges had been set, but they would detonate in mere minutes. With the shuttle's engines roaring to life, the team blasted off, narrowly avoiding enemy fire. The Torvith flagship was in chaos, as the power core began to destabilize, sending shockwaves through the entire vessel. ##### the final moment. As the shuttle made its escape, the team looked back. Through the viewport, they saw a cataclysmic explosion erupting from the heart of the Torvith flagship. The energy sphere at its core had imploded, sending a wave of destruction throughout the ship. The flagship, once a symbol of alien might, was now a burning wreck in space. The victory was bittersweet. While humanity had dealt the Torvith a blow that they could not easily recover from, the cost had been immense. The war was far from over. But as the task force returned to Earth, they carried with them a message of hope, a message that would reverberate across the galaxy. Humanity had struck at the heart of the enemy, and they were far from weak. The destruction of the Torvith flagship reverberated across the galaxy, sending shockwaves through the hearts of both the human resistance and the remaining Torvith forces. The once mighty alien empire now found itself on the defensive, reeling from the crippling blow to its command structure. However, while humanity celebrated the victory, the true scale of the war was just beginning to unfold. The Torvith were not a species that would simply lie down after such a defeat. Back on Earth, the exhilaration of the mission's success quickly gave way to the reality that the fight was far from over. The Torvith had vast fleets scattered across multiple systems, and while their flagship had been destroyed, they still maintained significant military strength. The resistance fighters, though emboldened by the victory, knew that it was only a matter of time before the Torvith would retaliate with a fury unlike anything they had experienced. Admiral Mercer, who had long been the symbol of human resistance, knew that their moment of glory had to be followed by a decisive push. They needed to consolidate their strength, rally the people, and prepare for what would likely be the final, desperate push to drive the Torvith from Earth once and for all. ####The Gathering Storm. While Earth's cities smoldered from the Torvith bombardments, the global resistance had begun to rally under one banner. The world's surviving military leaders came together to form a central command that was more than just a military operation, it was a symbol of human unity. From Africa to Asia, from Europe to the Americas, soldiers, civilians, and scientists alike worked tirelessly to repair and reinforce Earth's defenses. With the help of the resistance forces, many of Earth's cities began to rebuild their broken infrastructures. It wasn't just about restoring power and services, it was about making Earth stronger than ever before. As much as the Torvith had believed their strength would crush humanity, the resistance knew that their greatest weapon wasn't their technology, but their resolve. The news of the Torvith flagship's destruction spread across the world, igniting a fire of defiance in every human heart. Every individual, from the lowest peasant to the highest general, knew that the battle for Earth was the fight of their lives. The message was clear: humanity would not go quietly into the night. But even as Earth rallied, the Torvith were preparing for a response of their own. They had underestimated humanity before, but now, their strategy would be one of overwhelming force. They would strike Earth with everything they had left. #### The Torvith counteroffensive. Weeks after the destruction of their flagship, the Torvith regrouped and set their sights on Earth. Their fleet had been scattered, their forces diminished, but they were still a formidable enemy. The Torvith would not allow themselves to lose to a species they once viewed as primitive and weak. They had learned from their earlier mistakes, and their counteroffensive was swift and merciless. The Torvith launched a series of precision strikes against Earth's remaining space defenses, targeting the planet's orbital platforms and satellite systems. They knew that Earth's strength lay in its ability to fight back from within. Disrupting communication networks, navigation systems, and surveillance satellites was a top priority. The Torvith hoped that by crippling Earth's ability to coordinate their defense, they could pick off the remaining resistance groups one by one. But humanity was ready. ###The turning point. It was in the aftermath of the Torvith's opening salvo that the world would learn a shocking truth. The humans had discovered something within the wreckage of the Torvith flagship, a weapon capable of turning the tide of war. When the human resistance infiltrated the Torvith flagship months ago, they had recovered not just critical intelligence, but also pieces of alien technology that had been taken for study. Among these artifacts was a mysterious device, its purpose unknown. Earth's top scientists had spent every waking hour analyzing the technology, and what they found would become their most powerful weapon. The device was a highly advanced form of energy weapon, one that could tap into the raw power of a star. In essence, it was a star killer, capable of focusing energy into a beam that could obliterate entire fleets. The scientists, under the leadership of Dr. Angela Locke, managed to adapt the device into something that could be launched from Earth's surface. The weapon, dubbed Solstice, was humanity's last card, one that could either win the war or destroy everything they held dear. ###The final confrontation. The Torvith fleet, now fully aware of humanity's new weapon, launched an all-out assault. Their plan was to crush Earth's defenses before the Solstice weapon could be fully deployed. The sky was filled with fire as both sides clashed in a battle that would determine the future of the galaxy. Admiral Mercer led the charge, commanding Earth's fleet from the front. She had no illusions about the outcome. They were facing their greatest test yet. The human fleet, though strengthened by new alliances and weapons, was still outnumbered and outgunned. Yet their resolve was unwavering. This fight was for their homes, for their children, for their future. The battle raged in space, with human ships darting between waves of Torvith ships, using every tactic and maneuver they had learned over the course of the war. Despite the overwhelming odds, humanity's fighters held their ground. Each strike, each victory, fueled the resistance with a hope they hadn't felt in years. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Dr. Locke and her team worked around the clock to bring Solstice online. The weapon was their final hope, and they had one shot to make it work. ###The moment of truth. As the Torvith pressed their advantage, they made a critical mistake. They underestimated humanity's final weapon. The Solstice system, housed beneath a massive underground bunker in the Arctic Circle, was activated at the precise moment when the Torvith thought victory was within their grasp. The weapon's energy surged to life. A beam of pure destructive power, brighter than 1,000 suns, lanced out toward the heart of the Torvith fleet. The attack was so powerful that it tore through the alien ships with ease, disintegrating them in an instant. The Torvith flagship, at the heart of the assault, was obliterated in a single strike. The Torvith fleet, now crippled beyond repair, was thrown into chaos. Their coordination shattered, and their ships scattered in panic. ###The end of the beginning. As the dust settled, the world stood in stunned silence. Earth had done the impossible. Against all odds, humanity had repelled the Torvith, and had done so in a way that would echo through the stars for millennia. But as Admiral Mercer looked out over the ruins of the battle, she knew this victory was only the beginning. The Torvith had been defeated, but the war had shown humanity something deeper, the true power of human resilience. No matter how strong the enemy, no matter how dark the days, humanity's spirit could never be crushed. Earth had survived, but the fight had only just begun. The galaxy was vast, and who knew what other threats awaited. But humanity, once thought weak, had proven that when pushed to the edge, they would rise, not just to fight, but to win. the victory over the Torveth, while monumental, had come at a great cost. Earth's cities were in ruins, millions had perished in the battle, and the scars of war ran deep. But humanity had shown the universe that it was capable of surviving against overwhelming odds, and now the question was no longer whether they could defeat the Torveth, it was how they would rebuild. Admiral Mercer, along with the world's leaders, faced the monumental task of leading the planet's recovery. Earth's infrastructure was shattered, its population devastated, and the very nature of life had been altered forever. Yet, for all the devastation, there was hope. The people of Earth had proven that they could face the worst and still emerge victorious. But the victory was bittersweet. As much as Earth had won, it was only the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter filled with uncertainty and danger. #the Galactic Ripple. In the aftermath of the Torveth's defeat, the galaxy took notice. Word of humanity's victory spread far and wide, reaching distant star systems and advanced civilizations. The Torveth, once the dominant force in the galaxy, had been driven back, and the planet that they had underestimated was now the talk of the stars. But not all reactions were positive. Far from Earth's solar system, in a distant corner of the galaxy, a new and unfamiliar power watched with interest. The alien race known as the Varric, a highly advanced and militaristic species, had long been observers of galactic affairs. When they saw the fall of the Torveth, they saw an opportunity to expand their own influence. The Varric had long operated in the shadows, manipulating events across the galaxy to further their own goals. But now, with the Torveth weakened, they saw Earth's rising strength as a potential threat, or, perhaps, an ally. The Varric's fleet, a dark and imposing armada, began to make its way toward the human homeworld, ready to make contact. The message was clear: Earth's victory had drawn the attention of powers far greater than the Torveth. #the human response. On Earth, the leaders knew they couldn't afford to rest on their laurels. The Torveth were not the only empire in the galaxy, and the Varric's arrival signaled the beginning of a new era, one that would test humanity's resolve once again. Admiral Mercer, now serving as the head of Earth's Galactic Defense Command, prepared for what could be the most important meeting of her life. The Varric had made it clear that they sought an audience, but what they wanted was unknown. Some believed they had come to extend a hand of cooperation, while others feared the worst, that the Varric would seek to subjugate Earth as the Torveth had once tried to do. The weight of history hung heavy in the air. The human race, once a target of ridicule and conquest, had emerged as a force to be reckoned with. Yet they had no idea what the Varric wanted or what this new chapter of galactic politics would bring. #First Contact. When the Varric fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system, the tension was palpable. The massive ships, sleek and imposing, radiated a menacing presence. Their weapon systems were active, but the fleet held its position, neither advancing nor retreating. Admiral Mercer stood before the Global Council, her gaze fixed on the holographic map of the solar system. Her mind raced with possibilities, but she knew one thing for certain: the next few hours would shape the future of Earth and its place in the galaxy. A transmission came through. The Varric leader, a towering figure known as High Commander Theric, spoke in a deep, resonant voice. "People of Earth," Theric's voice echoed through the communication system, "we have watched your victory over the Torveth with great interest. You have proven your strength. But now, we must see if you are truly worthy of the galaxy's respect." The message was chilling, yet there was an underlying sense of curiosity in his tone. The Varric were not like the Torveth; they did not conquer through sheer brutality alone. They had a deep respect for strength, but they also tested those who would challenge them. Mercer stepped forward, her voice unwavering. "We have fought for our survival and for the future of our people. If you seek to test us, then we are ready. But know this: we will not be subjugated. We will not bow to any empire, no matter how advanced or powerful." The Varric's response was silent at first, and for a moment, there was an uneasy stillness. Then, High Commander Theric spoke again, this time with a different tone, one that conveyed both respect and warning. "Very well, Admiral Mercer. We will see if your people truly understand what it means to be free. Prepare yourselves. A new era of conflict has begun. With that, the transmission ended, and the Varric fleet remained at the edge of the solar system, its intentions unclear. #### Humanity's next challenge. Back on Earth, the leaders gathered to discuss their next move. The Varric were not the Torvith, but they were no less dangerous. They had no interest in direct conquest, it seemed, but they were not inclined to form alliances with a species they had only just learned of. The fear of the unknown loomed large, and humanity had no choice but to be cautious. Admiral Mercer, having faced impossible odds before, was unshaken. She knew that Earth's survival was not guaranteed. But she also knew that humanity had something the Varric couldn't predict: unity, resilience, and an unbreakable will to protect their home. For the first time since the Torvith's defeat, the human race found itself looking toward the stars with both wonder and fear. The galaxy, once an unknown and distant place, was now a battlefield. Humanity had proven its strength, but the test was far from over. And so, Earth stood at a crossroads, a choice between remaining hidden from the galaxy's larger conflicts or stepping forward to claim its place among the stars, on its own terms. #### The choice ahead. In the days that followed the Varric's arrival, humanity's resolve was put to the test once again. Would Earth bow to the pressure of a galactic power, or would it stand firm and face the future head-on? The galaxy was vast, and Earth's role within it was still uncertain. But if the last few years had shown anything, it was that humanity's strength, its courage, determination, and unwavering spirit, was its greatest weapon. The next phase of humanity's journey had begun. #### Part 7, The Dawn of a New Era. The weeks following the arrival of the Varric fleet were filled with uncertainty. Earth's leaders were faced with an unprecedented challenge: how to navigate the complex and often dangerous world of intergalactic diplomacy. The Torvith had taught humanity the brutal lesson of survival, but the Varric were an entirely different kind of enemy, one that respected strength, but demanded unwavering determination. Admiral Mercer, along with the leaders of Earth's Council, knew that the next steps were critical. The Varric had extended an invitation, but their true intentions remained a mystery. Were they seeking an alliance or a test of strength? Would they view humanity as a potential threat or as a valuable ally in their quest for galactic dominance? The stakes were higher than ever, and Earth's future hung in the balance. #### The Varric's challenge. The Varric, for all their might, were a species built on ancient traditions of honor and challenge. High Commander Theric had made it clear, the next move would be humanity's. If Earth wished to earn the respect of the Varric, it would have to prove itself, through combat, diplomacy, and most importantly, survival. The Varric were not interested in mere submission. They wanted to see if humanity could rise to their expectations and stand alongside them as an equal force in the galaxy. The terms of the Varric's challenge were simple: humanity would have to face them in a series of trials, each designed to test the limits of human ingenuity, combat skills, and resolve. The trials would take place on neutral ground, far from Earth, on a planet chosen by the Varric. It was an arena where the stakes were life and death, and humanity's place in the galaxy would be decided once and for all. #### The trials begin. Admiral Mercer assembled a team of humanity's best and brightest for the trials. The team was a diverse mix of military leaders, scientists, engineers, and strategists, individuals who had proven themselves during the Torvith conflict and who now represented the best that Earth had to offer. Colonel Sarah Wallace, the hero of the sabotage mission, was once again chosen to lead the charge, this time alongside the brilliant Dr. Angela Locke, the scientist who had developed the Solstice weapon, and Captain James Harper, a tactician known for his ability to think outside the box. The trials were set to take place on a remote planet, known only as Zaldar. The planet was a harsh and unforgiving place, with treacherous landscapes and unpredictable weather patterns. It was a testing ground for the most dangerous and advanced species in the galaxy, and it would serve as the ultimate proving ground for humanity. As the human team landed on Zaldar, they were greeted by a vast, barren wasteland, rugged mountains, deep ravines, and vast plains of shifting sand. The atmosphere was thin, the gravity heavier than Earth's, and the conditions were harsh. But none of that mattered. This was humanity's chance to prove itself. The first trial was a survival challenge. The team had to navigate the brutal terrain of Zaldar, survive the harsh conditions, and reach a designated point within a set time limit. Failure meant death, and the Varric would show no mercy. The team quickly split up, each member using their unique skills to face the challenges ahead. Colonel Wallace's leadership was instrumental. With her military training, she directed the team through perilous cliffs, down into scorching valleys, and through dense, poisonous forests. Along the way, they encountered deadly creatures, biomechanical beasts, native to the planet, that had been designed by the Varric to test any would-be challengers. The creatures were relentless, but the humans were even more determined. Every step forward was a victory, and as they neared the finish line, the team grew stronger, united by their shared purpose. But the trials were far from over. #### The second trial, the arena. After surviving the planet's harsh environment, the second trial was set to take place in a massive arena, constructed by the Varric for this very purpose. The arena was an imposing structure, its design both beautiful and terrifying. The walls were made of dark, smooth metal, and the floor was a deadly pit filled with traps and obstacles. The Varric had designed it to be a place where the strongest and most skilled could prove their worth. In the center of the arena stood a single, massive monolith, a symbol of the Varric's power. The trial would be a battle, a fight to the death against other alien species, each one more dangerous than the last. The human team had been selected to face off against a team of Varric warriors, genetically enhanced and trained for combat since birth. The arena erupted into chaos as the two teams clashed. The Varric warriors were brutal, their strikes precise and deadly. But the humans fought with a ferocity born of desperation to prove that they were not just survivors, but warriors in their own right. Every punch, every strike, every move was fueled by the lessons of the war with the Torvath. The humans had faced unimaginable odds before, and now they would show the galaxy that they were a force to be reckoned with. The battle was fierce, and it pushed the humans to their limits. But in the end, it was Colonel Wallace's tactical genius and Captain Harper's unconventional strategies that turned the tide. Together, they managed to outmaneuver the Varric warriors, taking them down one by one. By the time the dust settled, the human team stood victorious, bloodied, bruised, but unbroken. #### The final trial, the heart of the galaxy. The final trial was unlike any the team had faced before. High Commander Theric revealed the true nature of the test. The Varric were not only testing their combat skills and ingenuity, they were testing their moral fiber, their capacity for leadership, and their understanding of what it meant to be part of something greater than themselves. The trial would be a test of diplomacy, a negotiation with an alien race whose intentions were unclear. The humans would have to navigate the treacherous waters of galactic politics and prove that they could lead not only through strength, but through wisdom and compassion. It was a test of humanity's ability to unite not just Earth, but the galaxy as a whole. The humans faced an enigmatic alien species known as the Izek, an ancient race with their own deep sense of honor and tradition. The Izek had been watching the Varric's trials with interest, and they now demanded a seat at the negotiating table. The humans, armed with nothing but their wits and their newfound alliances, engaged in a tense and high-stakes negotiation. For days, the talks were grueling. But through skill, patience, and a deep understanding of human values, the humans were able to broker a peace agreement between the Varric and the Izek. The outcome was a groundbreaking alliance, one that would reshape the future of the galaxy. #### The new galactic order. When the trials ended, the humans had not only survived, they had proven their worth on every front. The Varric, once skeptical of Earth's potential, now saw humanity as a worthy ally. The Izek, impressed by their diplomatic prowess, offered to support Earth in its rise as a galactic power. Admiral Mercer, standing alongside her team, looked out at the stars. The galaxy was vast, and there would be countless challenges ahead. But humanity had proven that it was no longer a species to be overlooked. It was a species with the strength to endure, the ingenuity to adapt, and the courage to lead. The trials were over, but humanity's journey had only just begun. And so, Earth stepped into the greater galaxy, not as a fledgling species, but as a force to be reckoned with. The era of humanity's dominance in the stars had arrived.